So welcome everyone to the Tory Burch Foundation Business Webinar Program presented by Bank of America. Today's session is Scale Your Services, and we will learn tools to go from serving one-to-one to serving one-to-many, and steps for creating a signature framework that allows you to serve all of those people. And then we'll get into how to use that framework to create a suite of services that turn into a sustainable business design. I'm Desiree Brown, Senior Manager of Digital Content and Education, and I'm so excited to introduce Megan Hale. Megan is a scaling strategist and fintech founder who supports women thought leaders and social entrepreneurs. It's like she's designed to speak to our audience today. And as a scaling strategist, Megan blends her background as a former psychotherapist to help her clients distill their unique wisdom into signature offers. So after Megan's presentation, we will have plenty of time for Q&A. So please be sure to ask your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many as we can. We invite you to take notes and to make the most of the chat. We love seeing how engaged you all are. And as a reminder, today's session will be recorded. So please watch your inboxes for the replay link. And with that, over to you, Megan.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you today. So I see a few people who are popping in from Omaha. That is where I am based. And I love seeing all of the different business models that are in the chat as well. I know that we're about to have a powerhouse session. So let's go ahead and dive in and we'll get this party started. So as Desiree mentioned, we are going to be talking about how we go from one-to-one to one-to-many so we can really have more impact, revenue, and sustainability. And so where I want to start is why we might want to scale our services. So the first is you might be feeling that you are maxed out on time. It's very common that when we start our businesses, especially as service providers, we realize very quickly that there is only so much of us to go around. And eventually that starts to feel like it might not necessarily be sustainable long term. The other thing that tends to happen is that we also start to feel like we are maxed out on revenue. And this is especially the case if you are already booked out one-on-one and you're trying to figure out how can I possibly make more money, right? You know that you could probably raise your prices, but other than that, that's the only other variable that you can really shift that's going to open up more revenue potential. Third is you might also be feeling that you have limited impact. And this is especially true when we feel like we have so much wisdom that our clients rave about that we know needs to be reaching more people that a one-to-one model simply cannot open up for us. The other thing is that we might also be feeling that we have limited accessibility. And what this means is that if you're booked out, for instance, that means nobody can get access to your work because there's literally not a spot for them. But also from a pricing perspective, because one-on-one services typically are very time and energy intensive, those tend to be at higher rates. And so when we start to move into a one-to-many model, this can actually open up more financial accessibility to your wisdom and the work and the transformation that you are here to provide. And then lastly, the revenue that we make tends to rely on our presence and our availability, meaning that we only get paid if we are there delivering for our client. And so if you get sick, if you go on vacation, if you enter a season where your capacity is greatly limited, that's going to have a huge impact on your revenue. But when we shift into one-to-many models, this can open up so much more for us. Because when we scale our services, we create a more time leveraged business model. We're able to make more money with the hours that we're working. We also are able to increase our revenue potential because multiple people can be paying us for an hour of our time, for instance, versus just one person. We also notice that this broadens our ability to create even more impact. When we have a signature methodology that we have developed and refined, and we've created all of these rich assets, this allows us to serve more people and create an impact in thousands and thousands of lives. The other thing is that we increase accessibility because when we start to move into one-to-many models, this can open up different price points, both higher and lower, that allows you to serve a whole range of people that have a variety of financial resources. And then lastly, of course, when we create a business model that can generate revenue and support our clients, whether we are present or not, that is a complete game changer. It opens up so much more potential for how your clients are getting served, but also how your business is able to make money, whether you are sitting in your chair or not. And that is a very, very beautiful thing. So, let's talk about the problems, though, that happen when we tend to think about going to one to many when we are currently serving one to one.
Oh, Megan,
Yes,
just before you continue with the slide, can you get a little closer to the mic, please? I think some people are having trouble with the volume.
yeah. Let me see if my volume's all the way up. Is that better?
I didn't notice a change, or maybe a little bit more.
Let me change my gain on my mic. Is that better?
Yes,
Are you sure?
I think so. Hold on.
Okay. This
Oh,
mic.
wait, I'm sorry. People in the chat are saying not really.
Oh
Hmm.
no. Okay, hold on just a second. If I take this mic out, it's probably. Oh wait, here's the volume on this side. Is that better? Can you hear me better now?
No, let's see. Try a little bit more.
Can you hear me better now?
Uh, yes.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Thanks so much, Megan.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So, one of the biggest hurdles that we often face when we think about going from one to one to one to many is that when we start looking at the results that we're helping our clients achieve, those are usually quite unique to that client. And so, when we start to think about how can I do that at scale, that poses a pretty unique problem, right? So, we're going to talk about how to solve that today. Second is that clients often need custom support. It's very rare that every single client is going to need the exact same thing from point A to point Z. And so, how do we scale customization if we're moving from one to one to one to many? We're also going to talk about that today. Third, we also notice that our clients need a lot of agility, meaning that when we're serving one on one, this really allows us to have the flexibility to just dance and respond to what is in the room. And that actually is one of the biggest pieces that can create powerful transformation and results for our clients. And so, how do we scale that flexibility? And then lastly, we also want to maintain intimacy. If you are currently serving people one on one, I know that you love the depth and the connection that you form in that one on one relationship. And so when we start thinking about going from one to one to one to many, a lot of us are fearful that we might miss out on that or that's going to decrease in some way. And so we're going to talk about how we actually scale connection and depth in one to many settings. But before I go forward, out of these four, are any of these showing up for you as you start to think about going from one on one to one to many? I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Oh my gosh, y'all are all, yes, all of them. Okay, yes, yes, yes. Okay, perfect. Oh my gosh, y'all are on fire. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about how we maintain all of these things in a one to many format. Okay, so, our solution today is to create a signature method that is agile, highly customizable, and delivers consistent results while still maintaining room for people to have their unique results, okay? While designing offers that prioritize your desired level of intimacy. Because we can absolutely bring all four of those things into a one to many model. Are y'all ready to dive in? Okay, beautiful. So, the importance of a signature method. The first thing that I want to share is that there is a difference between a one to many offer and a signature one to many offer. Okay, these are not the same thing, and I'm going to share how I learned this very hard lesson in a second. But a signature method is foundational for creating signature offers. And when you have signature offers, those are what create brand cohesion for a strong marketing message, a strong marketing focus, which also leads to referrals and also client clarity of who you're really here to serve. And so when you think about brand momentum, right, all of these things are necessary for helping you become known, for helping you build trust, for helping people know what it is that you do and who it is that you serve. So when somebody is speaking about the exact thing that you do in a room that you're not even in, that person can mention your name because your name is top of mind. Okay, this is the power of signature offers, and we cannot have a signature offer without a signature method. But more so, a signature method helps you create valuable intellectual property that can be leveraged in all kinds of ways for exponential growth. It's also going to help you create repeatable processes that can be operationalized. So we can create key systems that are also going to open up more capacity in your business. And it also provides the pathway to sustainably scale your expertise. Okay. So, how do I know all of this? So, in late 2017, this is me, and I was a month shy from going on maternity leave when I already had a little boy at home, trying to figure out how I was going to make some big things possible. Okay, so not only was I about to have my second baby, I was also going to be a mama to two under two. And I found out that my partner was going to deploy for 6 months just 3 weeks after we had him. Okay, so for any mamas and especially any military mamas in the group, I know that you can already feel like that's a lot. That is a lot to be hit with or be invited into, wondering how is all of this going to be possible, right? And that's exactly where I was. And I knew ethically and responsibly for my sanity and well being, I literally only had about 10 hours a week to work that next year because of all the things that I was going to be holding in my personal life. Now, obviously, if I only had 10 hours a week to work, not all 10 of those hours could be spent serving my clients, right? Because as small business owners, we know that we're not just serving our clients. We're also the admin, we're also the marketer, we're the brand designer, the graphic designer. Like we wear all of these different hats. And so as I was looking at 2018, wondering like, does it even make sense to dream this next year, right? Or should I just put my business on pause? This really invited me to think differently about my business in four distinct ways that completely shifted everything. And I want to share those four things with you now. So, first, when I was faced with this, what felt at the time an insurmountable obstacle, I had to think differently in terms of time. Up until this point, I was so used to looking at my business of like, what do I need to make this month just to keep things going? And then I would solve that next problem the next month, the next month, the next month. Does that ring any bells for anybody? Because this is very, very normal for most entrepreneurs. In fact, it's estimated that 80% of entrepreneurs are following a month to month cash crunch. It's kind of like living paycheck to paycheck as entrepreneurs every single month, right? And so, because I was getting ready to have a second baby, I knew that I was going to go on maternity leave. I knew that my husband was leaving. Like, I knew all of these things were going to happen. I couldn't just think about what's going to happen the next month. I had to start thinking about months and months and months. Okay. And this was such a game changer. Second, is that I also had to get clear on what financial stability really looked like for me this next year because up until this point, I had been pursuing some random number that some other entrepreneur or entrepreneurs like the zeitgeist was telling me was financial success, right? And this was the first time that I really had to get clear like, how much does my family need for my business to bring in for me to not have to worry about cash for this next year? Okay. And that led me to opening up spreadsheets and calculating some very specific numbers for myself and my family for the very first time. Third, I also had to think about marketing efficiency because I was getting ready to have a baby. As any mom knows, you know that baby's coming or not. And so I only had like a couple of months to figure something out and to sell something, right, before I had this baby. And then lastly, I had to think about sustainable delivery. I knew I only had 10 hours a week to work. And so out of those 10 hours, I really only had about five that I could seriously support clients and bring in revenue. And I knew that a one to one model was not going to work. Okay. So these four things forced me to think completely out of the box and say, okay, I have very limited resources. I have very limited time. I have very limited energy. I have very limited support, very limited all the things. How are we going to make more possible? Okay. And that is what led me to create one key offer that was a one to many offer that generated one full year sustainable cash flow. Okay. I sold that offer out in just 4 weeks and just 3 days before I had my second baby. And for the first time ever, I had 12 full months of cash flow secured and coming into my business. As you can imagine, that is a game changer for any entrepreneur, right? And so, just to break this down for how different my world was. So, 2017, right? Still working month to month, had no level of reliable cash flow at all. In 2018, I doubled my revenue working half the time, and I crossed 100K in yearly revenue for the first time ever. Okay, that in and of itself was huge. But not only did I double my revenue, I also doubled what I was paying myself, because those are two different things, right? We can make more money in our business, but not necessarily pay ourselves more money. So I had doubled what was coming into our household. I also paid off 30K in debt that year over the course of 10 months. So September was my final debt payment on all of my business credit cards. I felt so incredibly accomplished. I also became a 2% giving company, which is a commitment that I have maintained to this day. So 2% of all of my revenue goes to organizations, causes, and candidates that I care about. And I also did a lot of money healing work that year because I had consistent cash flow for the first time ever. Okay. Y'all, I thought that I had won the lottery. I was like, oh my gosh, I have made it. Has anybody like ever been waiting for that moment in your business where you're like, I have finally arrived, right? That's how I felt. But then 2019 came. And what I realized is that there was a very big difference between having a one-to-many offer and having a signature one-to-many offer. Because the offer that I created in 2018 wasn't based on any sort of signature methodology. It was created very intuitively for a group of about 20 women that I was helping them live more true to their values and in alignment, and helping them cultivate more bravery to really create life on their own terms, okay? And I was kind of winging it. I was figuring it out as I went. And so by the time 2019 came around, my money ran out because the offer completed, and I didn't have a usable offer that I could remarket to a whole new group of people because it was custom created for them. Okay. Now, as you could imagine, after all I went through in 2018, I was also incredibly fatigued, right? I was sleep deprived. I'd been holding so much. I didn't have it in me to create a whole new program. And so because of that, my revenue dipped bad. Like I made almost half of what I made in 2018. So 2018, I was like, oh my God, I've made it. And then 2019, I was like, oh my God, I've failed. I have seriously, seriously messed up, right? But that's when I realized, okay, if we do this differently, if I create a repeatable process that's built on a signature methodology, I can see how this can completely shift my business trajectory. And so that's what I did. I created my signature method in 2019. I created my first signature offer, and I started rebuilding my business by working hard once. Okay. And then I spent the next 4 years mastering the art of scalable signature offers that deliver consistent, rave-worthy client results. And just last year, I portioned off a piece of my signature method to create a whole entirely different company, which is called Dream Money, which is a strategic revenue planning software for women by women that we are scaling to $100 million over the next 5 years. Okay, so bananas to be in this place, all by really getting clear on my signature methodology. Okay, and so that is what we are going to be diving into today. The first place I want to start, though, is I want to introduce you to the anatomy of sustainable business model and how your one-to-one offers and one-to-many offers all work together to create a signature offer suite. Okay. So keep in mind, you can get access to my slides after this, so don't feel like you have to take all the notes, but this is usually a big missing piece for a lot of people when they're thinking about how do I create momentum, okay? So at the top of our triangle, we have content that its whole main focus is to create connection and brand awareness. So this is all of your free or very low cost content. So all of your social media, if you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube channel, whatever that might look like for you, is all up here, okay? And its main focus is to help people understand who it is that you are, what it is that you do, and who it is that you help, okay? From there, we move into the first offer inside our offer suite, which is what I call an introductory offer. And an introductory offer is just that. It introduces people to a piece of your signature methodology, okay? This introductory offer is also kind of like a bite-sized step into your world. Your price point is usually pretty accessible for people to come and just check you out. Do they like your teaching style? Do they like your values? Do they like the methodology that you're using, etc.? Okay. From this place, we then move into what I call mid-tier offers. Now, some of the businesses that I work with have one mid-tier offer, some of them have two. These are not nearly as important when it comes to sustainable cash flow as this offer is, your introductory offer, and this offer down here, which I'll talk about in just a second, okay? The first mid-tier offer is one that builds momentum and quick touch. I want you to think that this might be like an alumni club for clients who have gone through some sort of your methodology with you. It could be a membership of some kind. It could be a related topic that you want to teach on, like a course or something like that. Okay. This particular mid-tier offer does not take a lot of time or energy in order for you to deliver, so it's very, very scalable, okay? The other type of mid-tier offer, though, is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. This one takes a lot of time and a lot of energy for you to deliver, and that's the one that brings high touch and high rapport. And so this mid-tier offer, this is going to be all of your one-on-one work. It could be your done-for-you work if you do VIP days or intensives, if it's a retreat, something like that, right? This is going to be this type of offer. And when we start building our business model, this is usually where we begin. We start by delivering this high touch, high rapport, mid tier offer because we don't have to create any methodology. We just show up with our brain, we show up with our wisdom, we show up with our heart, and our clients get all access to all of it, right? So from here, now we move into the most important offer in your entire offer suite, which is your foundational offer, because this is literally the foundation that your whole business is built upon. Okay. Your foundational offer brings the most comprehensive signature method and your most robust transformation. Okay. So this is a one-to-many offer. This is a one-to-many offer. This is a one-to-many offer. The only one-to-one offer we have is the mid-tier offer that brings high touch and high rapport. Okay. And so when we build all this out, here's what's beautiful about this. All of our top of triangle content is always going to point to our introductory offer. Our introductory offer is going to do such a good job delivering results for our clients that they say, how do we keep doing this work with you? Okay. That introductory offer literally sells into your foundational offer for you. And I want you to imagine the magic of that. Okay. When you have an offer that's performing for you, this is acting as a sales asset for you. Simply by you just showing up and doing good work, that your clients are like, how do we keep doing this? That's when they come into that foundational offer. Okay. From that place, now they will flow into one of these mid-tier offers that's build momentum and quick touch because they already have established relationship with you. They're already familiar with your body of work. Okay. So the thing that I want to point you to though is what holds all of this together is the signature method, right? This is what creates a cohesive offer flow where one offer flows from one to the next, right? So let's talk about what a signature method is. So in its most basic form, a signature method is simply your point A to point Z transformation, okay? Point A is where your dream people are right now. Point Z is where you want your dream people to end up when they are done working with you, okay? And everything that's happening between A and Z is your signature method, where you are having them move step by step by step inside a process that's helping them take this journey from point A to point Z, okay? So what this looks like when we are really detailing this out of like, what is our signature process of guiding people here, right? Is I want to introduce the next piece of this puzzle, which is what I call a wisdom model. A wisdom model is a visual representation of your signature method that is really highlighting your unique way of helping people get a very specific result. So in the center here is what I call the heart of your work, and that is the core result. So this is your point Z transformation of what you want your body of work to be known for, okay? From there, we also have to define what the core pillars are that our clients need to master or learn in order for this core result to be possible, okay? So we have the core result here, and when we have the three supporting pillars that are guiding clients to that core result in the center, okay? From this place, we also have our core values. And this is a really unique way that I like to teach how to create a signature method because when we can clarify our core values, this is what helps us attract really aligned clients because they also tend to share those core values, right? And these core values are also going to be very integral for how you do what you do because you're letting those values guide your decisions, okay? Guide your work. And from this place, on the outer rim here, this is where all of your core curriculum lives, okay? And so when we start to move from a one-to-one to one-to-many process, what you'll find is that we actually have to start teaching things, right? Teaching pieces that allow us to coach to the gap. Okay. So we're leveraging core curriculum to teach our clients concepts, philosophies, or skills, and then we're helping clients close that gap through active coaching or active service, whatever that might look like. Okay. So to show you an example of what this looks like when we start to build all of this out is in the Megan Hale version, for example. The core invitation of my work is to help you step into dream money. And dream is actually an acronym that I pulled from some of my core values, actually. So the D stands for deliberate, the R stands for reliable, the E stands for easeful, A stands for abundant, and M stands for meaningful money, right? So how do we step into dream money? Well, in order to do that, we have to be grounded in our intentional leadership. And so, what does it look like to leverage our business to have a social impact, for instance, to lead in accordance with our values, to create company culture that's really allowing our values to be lived out loud? Okay. When it comes to this piece of dream money, we also have to step into sustainable cash flow. So we have to be able to earn money. That's a huge component of my framework. And so thinking about these core components that people need to step into for this to be realized, which I'll show you in just a second. And then lastly, it's not just about earning more money. I think a lot of people think that in order for money to feel dreamy, we just have to earn more, but that's not the case. We also have to be able to master our money. And that's going to come down to financial systems. It's going to come down to our interpersonal relationship with money and also financial literacy of really helping to close our knowledge gap of helping us feel more confident when it comes to understanding money, the way that it works in the world, right? And so when we're clear on these outer core components, just to kind of give you an example, when we steps into sustainable cash flow, we have to step into our thought leadership. That's going to be a key component of starting to build all of this out. That is where your signature methodology comes in. But we also need to put signature offers around your thought leadership. So you're actually helping people receive transformation through all of your wisdom. And then we also have to have a value driven sales process that are bringing people into our world, right? And so when we have all of this built out, the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to expand each of these core curriculum components. Okay, so to give you an example, if I were to build out this thought leadership component, what are all the things that I need to teach, right, that goes into helping somebody really establish their thought leadership? Well, first, I'm going to help them clarify the wisdom that they bring to the table. I'm also going to help them clarify their lens versus their lane, because your lane is the things that what you want to be known for. Your lens are the unique lived experiences that you have that help shape the way that you approach that lane. Okay, this is one of the things that really helps you create your unique market value, because no one is going to have your exact lens, right? People can have the same lane as you, right? There's plenty of people that have the same lane as me, but no one's going to have your same lens. And so that's one of the things that's going to make your signature method very unique. Then we also have to create a framework that holds your wisdom and gives language to your body of work, which is what this whole wisdom model is, right? Helping clients build this out for themselves. And then also clarifying your signature milestones. So one of the things that's happening in this model right here is that this is kind of a visual map of how all of your wisdom really comes together to create a cohesive body of work that's leading to a very specific core result, okay? But the thing that's missing in a signature framework is sequence. So the milestone, the line that I showed earlier, that point A to point Z and all those dots in between, that's the sequence of how people are moving through all of your wisdom that you're going to lay out here, okay? And when we're laying out milestones, we don't necessarily go around, in order of our methodology here. We might say we're going to clarify the wisdom that you bring to the table first, then we're going to clarify, a financial piece over here. So we're really laying out the step-by-step process when we're clarifying your milestones. Then next, we have to develop your IP, your intellectual property. And these are all the tools, the systems, the processes, the frameworks that you create that help people create transformation. So an example of IP might be a calculator, for instance. It might be a specific exercise that you guide your clients through. It could be as simple as like a leadership statement that is unique to your body of work that you're really helping them refine and then apply and use it in a very specific way. It could be, I'm just starting to think of some of the business models that I saw in the chat earlier. I think I saw a website designer, right? So thinking about the unique way that you write a sales page. It's going to be very custom to your unique approach to copywriting or something along those lines, right? And then we also have the internal process of owning your thought leadership. So, how the world sees you and comfortably standing in that space. And this part is probably the hardest for a lot of us, of starting to take up space with our unique wisdom and starting to believe that we have something that's unique, that is all our own, right? And so that's just kind of an example that as we're starting to create our core result, our core pillars that we want to be known for, and then thinking about the core components, right? And everything that we need to teach goes into actually creating your own version of thought leadership. Okay. And then another example of all of this is like over on the money mastery pillar, we have money systems, we have the inner work, we have the financial literacy, which I mentioned. This whole pillar of mine has now become its own separate company, right? And so I wanted to include this just to show you like how all of this can grow and evolve over time. And so everything at the Megan Hale Co. Lane is really focusing on this pillar here and this pillar here. And then Dream Money is really focusing on that money mastery piece with the software that we have built out. Okay. So the cool thing is that now when we're thinking about the solutions, when we think about clients often achieve unique results, the thing that helps us clarify like what this looks like that we can actually scale is we have to clarify the core results we want to be known for. And that means that your clients might get a whole range of results working with you, right? But why they seek you out is going to be for a very specific result. And it is up to us to name that. We have to name that core result that we want our body of work to be known for. And then we also have to create that signature method that helps us deliver those results, okay? Second is clients often need custom support. And so the way that we're going to leverage a signature method to support this problem is that we're going to teach the foundational steps through curriculum that can then be customized in when we're coaching those clients to the gap, right? So this is obviously going to create a lot more capacity in your business because everyone's going to, like, I want you to imagine if you're on a one-on-one call, instead of having to teach that client live X, Y, and Z, they're able to learn that information on their own and then show up to that coaching call where y'all can leverage that time to go so much deeper, right? The third is that clients often need agility. And so, how can we create flexibility? That's really going to come into our offer design. And so, a hybrid offer is an offer that blends education and coaching, or education and consulting, right? Some other level of service on top of the education. And that's going to allow us to flex and move with that client for whatever they need support on. And then lastly, when we want to maintain intimacy, we can create high value touch points that really build that connection. And so, for instance, if we're creating a scalable one-to-many offer, that might mean that when a client hits a certain milestone, they get to hop on a one-on-one call with you, or you get to celebrate them inside your community. There's so many different ways that we can create connection and touch points that maintain that intimacy, even inside a one-to-many offer, okay? Now, the last thing that I want to share before we wrap up today is one, there's usually a lot of questions when we start looking at this um, business model, right? What most people do is that they're like, okay, they start trying to create all of these different offers. And the first thing that I want to normalize is that it can take years for us to build all of this out, okay? And the place that I recommend that each of you start is by really focusing on your foundational offer first, and that's for a few reasons. First, your foundational offer is typically going to be at least 2 to 3K, at least, okay? And because our goal is that we also want this foundational offer to be foundational from a revenue standpoint, okay? So our goal with this is for this foundational offer to generate 60 to 100% of your minimum viable revenue. Now, your minimum viable revenue is going to be how much your business needs to earn that covers 7 key financial needs for a full year. Okay, that's going to be unique to you and your business. And there's going to be a link to a calculator for you to calculate this number for you and your business for free in just a second. Okay, this is a number that every single entrepreneur needs to know because this is what stabilizes your cash flow. Okay, and so our goal is to generate that number with just one offer, exactly how I did when I made that huge business shift at the end of 2017. Okay. And if we can't generate at 100%, our goal is to at least get 60% there, because that's still adding so much more sustainable cash flow to your business where you can close that gap with other offers if you need to. Okay. But the reason that we want to focus on your foundational offer in order to do that is for two key reasons. One, this is going to be at a higher price point, which means that you typically won't need a huge audience in order for you to reach this huge goal. Okay. So I reached this goal, like we had 20 people come into this program, right? And I think my audience was like 600 people at the time. So not a huge audience, right? But the other reason that we want to focus on a foundational offer is because this is going to create the biggest transformation for your clients, which is going to require you to build out the most intellectual property. Okay. So if you spend your time really building everything out for your foundational offer, it becomes so much easier for you then to maybe pull the first lesson or something like that from your foundational offer and create an introductory offer. You don't even have to create something new. Okay. So that's why I really recommend starting at this foundational offer first, because it's going to help you work hard once where so many other things can be leveraged. And the other thing about a foundational offer, creating this first, is that you're really going to get a sense of what really, out of the clients that got the best results in this program, what did they have coming into this program that helped them create that transformation? Because that insight, that wisdom can also go into helping you create the best possible introductory offer that's now helping even more of those clients have amazing results in your foundational offer. Okay. So I know looking at this wisdom, this business model is like, okay, I'm going to create all the things, but I really want to encourage you to create just one offer at a time. And also, this is going to be the quickest way to get one offer out there so you can start generating more sustainable cash flow in this one to many format. It's going to open up so much more scalability in your business. Okay. So from here, there's three next steps for you. First, I want you to calculate your NVR, which you can do with the Dream Money calculator. So you can take a screenshot, and Desiree is going to have all of these links for you in case you don't catch all of these. Okay. But I want you to calculate this number because this is the number your business needs to reach to have sustainable cash flow. And it starts to inform so many strategic decisions for you and your business. Second, if you want to download my slides from today, you can grab those at this QR code here. And then lastly, if you want to create your signature methodology, so that three Venn diagram model, I have a self-paced course, which is called Map Your Method, and you can take 20% off as a Tory Birch Foundation community member and go through that process, okay? And inside Map Your Method, we're gonna do two different things. We're gonna start by integrating your wisdom, really thinking about all the wisdom that you bring to the table. So I'm gonna walk you through a wisdom audit where I'm gonna have you detail out all of your professional training, your personal interests, things from your own lived experience, and also your values and your inner wisdom for how all of that comes together to create your signature method. And then we're going to translate all of that wisdom to actually creating your wisdom model, which is that three Venn diagram thing that helps you really build out and name your body of work. Okay. So if you want to check that out, you can do so with that QR code here. And that leads us right to time for our Q&A. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you'll have about one-to-many offers, increasing scalability, building your signature method, or any of those things.
Okay, Megan, thank you so much. We have a ton of questions, so I'm going to dive right in. You mentioned some ideas earlier about creating a framework that applies to a range of businesses. But can you reground us in how some of the principles you shared can apply to B2B versus B2C services?
Yeah, so actually, a lot of my one-on-one clients serve B2B. So the framework works very much the same. The only thing that changes is how you present those offers, how you put offers around your signature methodology and how that's delivered, right? So if I was working as in a B2C model, I might create a group program, for instance. If I was working with an organization, I might create like a 2-day training where I'm going in and training their organization on XYZ. That's part of my lane, part of my area of expertise. I have a lot of clients also that build out certification programs for organizations as well, and so they certify them as a trauma-informed organization, as an example. With B2B, it's really thinking about what's going to be one, what's their availability, because organizations usually have much limited availability as far as time goes. And so you really have to think about what's going to work for them. And then you also have to think about, does it make sense to do something more in an intensive format? Or you could do something like 6 months, it could be a year, but then what are they doing within those months or that year that's sustainable for them to agree to as well?
Great. And even with a solid framework, what are some of the common pitfalls you see your clients make, and how can everyone here avoid them?
That's a good question. I see people getting really hung up on the wording because obviously when you're creating a framework, it's kind of like a puzzle and you're trying to figure out, what goes where and what language do I want to use that feels really resonant for, my brand and body of work. My advice would be don't get so hung up on the language and the wording, like really focus on the concept and the area of expertise because marketing language can take some time to really kind of dial in. So, for instance, when I was first creating my framework, I just had money in the center. I did like dream money wasn't even a thing at that point. It took months and months and months for that acronym to drop in. And so I would just find different ways of talking about money that were really aligned with my values, right? Of how do we step into sustainable money? How do we step into nourishing money? And eventually the right wording fell in. And that's where I really see people get stuck so often is we tend to get perfectionistic with the words. But let this be a living, breathing document because it is. It's going to shift and evolve as your body of work shifts and evolves. And so don't get too hung up on the language.
Great. And I love that note about leaving space for evolution.
Yes.
Mhm. And so going down the line here, we have some people on who leverage a retainer model for their businesses. And how do you think that they can apply those principles today?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients who work on retainer, they use the introductory offer as a way to get their foot in the door. Then they'll do a foundational offer to really help people go through like a very specific process to get a very core result. And then that mid-tier offer that's like builds momentum, but it's low touch. That's where the retainer offer really comes in because it's just wraparound support, right? I have another client where her introductory offer, this is a B2B client, her introductory offer is corporate wellness. So she gets her foot in the door to go and talk about, wellness for their organization and opening up more capacity. Then her foundational offer is actually really empowering their organization with trauma informed care. And then she has a membership on the back end where she provides all the people who go through her certification 2 years of ongoing support that they continue to pay for, right? So it's just a one way of thinking about how does everyone go through all of your offer flow that's really supportive for the client. And that's the most important thing when you're thinking about offers is thinking about what is going to be of the highest good, highest support for the best possible outcomes for my people.
Mm, yeah. And let me just find my notes here. This is great. Okay. And so we're talking about those core results, right? When articulating them, what happens if you think the core results are different from what your clients are saying?
I think using your client language is really important because that's like creating your marketing message with your client in mind, I think is really key. But if the core result is different than what your clients are mirroring back to you, I would kind of get curious about that. Like, do they not know that that is one of the core desired outcomes that they're supposed to be working towards? Are they not getting that outcome? I think that's the biggest piece. If they're not getting that outcome, then we need to reassess because something's misaligned there. So I think client interviewing is really, really helpful. But if there's a misalignment, I would dig deeper into why. Like, where's that gap?
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. We know that clients are always really the base of our businesses, so have to listen to them.
I would
Um,
too, like even with Dream Money, like Dream Money is a very broad end result, right? And so that means lots of different things to different people. For some people, that's a 250K a year business. For other people, it's a $2 million a year business, right? And so just thinking about how they're defining that core result, I think could be also helpful information for you.
mhm. Yeah, that's great. We love this idea of leading with curiosity, and it's always so interesting to see the number of presenters that highlight that for our community. And so we have someone who asked, I'm sorry. Okay, I think there was a sound issue. Okay, so someone asked about what to do when clients feel like they need only part of your offering. How can people respond to what clients are saying without constantly spinning up, custom responses.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's on a case by case basis, right? I think this is where you really have to stand in your expertise because a client is going to say, "Well, I only need X, Y, and Z," but you know that they actually need X, Y, and Z and A to have that full end result. And so you need to be clear, transparent, and explicit in that. They can still decide to not take you up on that, but I think it's really important for you to name, and you don't have to like siphon off just pieces of your work. If it's best experienced as a complete experience, and that's the only way that it's offered, and you can stand in that.
And if you have services that are highly dependent on your artwork, personal skill set, or really just physically being there, what are the best ways to train new employees or have others join your team to scale? Um, I think that this definitely applies to people who've said, I have the signature framework, but I think that we need more bodies to deploy it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the wisdom model can be it's usually used as a backward facing document for you. Like we don't typically present this to clients because it can be very overwhelming. But we can absolutely use it as a methodology to train our team on our team culture. Here's how we do things. So having a salesperson who's trained in your wisdom model, where they're able to articulate the unique way that y'all approach something, I think is really, really important. Marketing, oh my goodness. There
Mm.
are so many ways, like all of that outer rim in your core curriculum, those are topic ideas, right? That you can create posts around. So having your marketing person trained on that. So thinking about how you can leverage this to train your team to create even more cohesion to how the company is running. Super, super smart way of leveraging this.
I love that idea of kind of bringing it out of the product realm and having a framework be used operationally. That's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah.
And so Shay in the Q&A asked a great question. How can a founder know if they should be creating offers and working on this amazing framework that you presented today, building out that signature offer versus knowing when it's time to hire someone to join the team and scale together?
I would highly recommend that you not hire somebody without a signature framework in mind. If they're going to be a coach, it depends on like who you're hiring for, right? If somebody's going to be coaching or doing a similar service as you, I think having a signature methodology is essential because it creates consistency. Consistency in delivery, consistency in results, consistency in approach, consistency in process, consistency in values. Like it is the glue that's holding everything together. And I think when we try and scale too soon before we have this core system, like we can't delegate this. That's the other thing. This is your wisdom. It's your intellectual property. You can't hire somebody out to like know your brain and know your lens or know any of these things. And so I would really recommend to do this work first before you hire on another service provider so you can maintain that consistency because that's everything for a brand loyalty, brand trust, brand rapport. I mean, all of that is so critical.
And so we have people on here, they've built their businesses, they're in the early stages, and they already have some clients. And how can they engage those existing clients to inform the intro offers to make and build out a pipeline?
Yes, so this is a great question. So I teach like an 80/20 principle. And what that means is I really want you to think about your 20% like highest performing clients. Use them as a case study of thinking about what made them so great to work with. Like, what did you love about them? What values did they have? What mindset did they have? What foundation did they have in place when they came to work with you? Because we really want to create offers that are modeled after those types of results, right? And when we can start to assess, oh, well, these clients had this, but these clients didn't, what those clients didn't have could spark an idea for how to create an offer that helps them get that. So now they're part of that 20% and they're having those amazing results.
Oh, that's great. Um, and we have another question that I think a lot of people are thinking about. How do you make those tough decisions about the services to edit out when creating your foundational offer?
This is like the hardest. It's the hardest. I'm sure we've all heard that phrase, like you have to kill your darlings sometimes, right? And that is true. I think, my a business model has changed and evolved so many times over the years. Like it started, my introductory offer used to be, just the dream money framework of helping people get clear on their numbers. And then my foundational offer was just helping them create that one offer. Now the introductory offer is map your method, helping people think about methodology instead of just modalities, and then helping them create that one key offer. This is a living, breathing thing as well, right? And so I think when it comes to making those high level decisions, one, you have to look at what's selling. Is something performing well? If it is, that's going to be even harder to make those calls. If it's not, it's like, well, do I really care about this offer? Like, why am I so attached to this offer? Or what might need to change to help it perform better? So we have to ask the right questions. But I think if you have an offer that's taking up too much time, you can think about, well, how can I get my time back? Could I hire a coach that opens up more capacity for me? There's lots of different ways that, like, different levers that we can pull to make a current offer work better before we get rid of it or change directions or pivot. So, as much as I would love to say, here's how you do it, there's lots of different levers to pull that are very unique to every single situation.
Sure. And someone asked about how AI can support creating a signature framework or scaling your work. Do you have any recommendations about how to consider this while protecting this signature you and part of your work?
Yeah, I think that AI can be really helpful with helping you come up with the language, of
Mhm.
helping just doing a brain dump of like, here's what I'm helping people do, what words come to mind, because that can really spark an idea. I think if you're thinking about, how do most people help others create sustainable cash flow, for instance, like in my example, and it might give me a breakdown of like giving me even an example of a framework. I think even just seeing some other ideas can really get your brain going. But the way that I approach this is really with that wisdom audit first. And when you see that unique skill set in combination, it becomes so much easier to create the signature framework.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, and we have this great question. So what happens if you do have an offer and model out there, see that interest, but the interest stalls on bringing people up to that higher level of engagement? What are ways that someone can pivot without alienating the people who are already engaged or harming that pipeline that's been built? I know you touched a little bit on pivoting earlier, but I would love to have you expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where you can toy around with siphoning off just one piece, right? So if you're noticing there's a gap, you could create a bridge offer. So let's say my foundational offer is 10 key modules, but people are not saying yes to these 10 key modules because they don't feel like they're ready yet. And this is a very, very real thing that can happen. And so I have to now ask the strategic questions of what's going to help my people feel ready, feel that level of confidence that they're now ready to step into this whole thing with me, right? So I can create a bridge offer where maybe we just go through the first two modules together in a really high touch way that helps build that confidence. They start to see some results where now they're ready to go through the remainder of that process.
Um, and we're coming to the end here, but I didn't want to leave without asking this question. We do have many people on today who offer those one-to-one services that really require clients to engage with like deep, painful personal histories. And if you could offer any words of advice for accounting for that in scaled offerings.
Yeah. So I think that really is going to come into your offer design of how do you create touch points for that.
Mhm.
And the question that I would be asking myself, especially as a former therapist, right, is confidentiality and vulnerability and safety is really key. So you have to think about when people are dealing with pain, especially like painful history that might feel excruciatingly vulnerable to share. How can we create a safer container for that sharing to happen? And then how can we create safety within the container itself where sharing like that can happen? I've had one to many offers where there's a high level of safety for vulnerable sharing, and it is profound. It is transformative. When somebody can speak their truth and feel held and seen and supported and not judged, like that is the thing. Like nothing else could have happened in that container. They just needed that one moment where they got to say that thing and let it be okay, where they were witnessed, and it changed their whole trajectory, right? And so I think that a lot of that comes into how you're creating the container, the culture that you're building, how you like what are the agreements that you're asking everyone to agree to as part of that container. There's a lot of just community building that goes into creating a space like that, which is a skill set all of its own. But I also think just through your offer design, having like a Voxer you can have somebody have a box note to, like a voice note to you, as a way of sharing something in that safe container first before they might feel comfortable sharing it in a larger group setting.
Yeah, thank you for that. And okay, great question here. You mentioned IP, intellectual property, a few times. And do you have any last pro tips for protecting your signature lens? And should you be working with a lawyer before going wide with these offers?
100%. Maybe not so much with your offers, but anything that is like a brand name. So, like I've gone through trademark issues before of getting really, really attached to names and then finding out that the trademark is already owned by somebody else. And that is devastating. It is so, so heartbreaking when that happens to be part of your journey. So if you find a name that you just fall in love with, do your due diligence, do your own trademark search first, then I would hire an attorney to do that. It's really worth its time and weight in gold. Truly, truly is.
And I think that that is a great place to end. And I think, Megan, can you um, share those QR codes one more time, please?
Of course.
I'll take a second if we want to scan them for ourselves. And if the Tory Burch Foundation team can drop some of those links in the chat as well for people who can't scan.
Your minimum viable revenue will take 5 minutes or less to calculate. You just input four unique numbers and our calculator will do all the work for you. And then the slides are pretty easy. Map your method. If you want to go through that course, I would probably budget probably about 2 hours to get the content's very short. It's two 30-minute lessons, but then to actually sit down and like brainstorm your wisdom model, like that can take some time for sure.
Great. Thank you, Megan. We are so grateful to you for sharing your expertise with our community. And